Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Oluwatosin Oshifodorin, and you're welcome to today's Code with DevTaz. Today, we'll be talking about one of AWS beautiful resources that I found interesting, and which is the API Gateway. So, and we'll first of all be looking at what is actually API Gateway, and we are going to have a hands-on demo on what it actually does. So first of all, without further ado, let's just get into it. So what is API Gateway? API Gateway is it's a fully managed front door service for APIs, handles routing, authentication, throttling, monitoring, so you don't build that plumbing yourself. Okay. So where it sits in an architecture diagram, so the client, which is you and me, for example, and the API gateway stays at the middle, and then you have your backend servers, which could be Lambda or EC2 or an HTTP endpoint or any other AWS services. So the real world analogy, okay, so a receptionist, for example, that validates visitors, checks appointments, and directs them to the right office. Yeah, so that's basically what, if you think about this particular analogy, that's exactly what AWS API Gateway does. Not just AWS, actually, any API Gateway, that's basically what they do. So I'm going to show us a Canva of what it actually does. So if this is the client, this is me and you, for example, this is your phone, this is your laptop, and we are trying to access this backend server. So instead of rather going directly to access your backend servers, and you could actually have another backend server here, for example. So let's say you have another backend server. Yeah, yes, you have another one. Let's say you have another one here, for example. So this is backend one, backend two. Let's say this is backend two, and this is backend three. Yeah. So yes, backend three. So yeah, you have three of these backend servers, and so there are requests coming in. It could be a get request, post request, whichever request it is. So it could be thousands of servers of backend servers here, for example, and you obviously can't give your clients all of the APIs to all of this backend service. I mean, let's say there are 1,000, for example. Do you want to give your client 1,000 APIs? So no, and that is actually where your API gateway comes in. So API gateway is kind of like the end middle point, like the pointer to the service where to the backend service the client is actually requesting to. So it's instead of the traffic to go directly to your backend, which obviously is not security conscious, one, and also so not making it safe. That's one. Number two is what if backend two is what the client needs, and so you kind of know you kind of want to find a way to direct the client to exactly where to exactly what they are actually requesting. So the traffic kind of goes like this. It goes like this. Kind of goes from the client, which is for example you and I here, goes like this, and then API gateway kind of then route the traffic to the backend services. So to to this. I'm new to this IUAC. Yeah, so then it's actually just route the traffic here. So depending on actually where you actually want it depending on your request, basically. So that is actually what API Gateway does. So if you look at here, for example, yeah, so this is under API Gateway. So the client actually requests the traffic. So the traffic goes to API Gateway, and here, so we have a Lambda function here. So your backend service could be a Lambda function, it could be an EC2 instance, or it could be an ECS. So the API gateway kind of routes the traffic there, depending on what you are requesting for as the client. Or we can even have the backend service outside of AWS environment entirely, like we have this backend out here. So it could be an HTTP request. So we can actually go outside and fetch the API service, which is exactly what we are going to be doing today. Maybe if time permits us, we'll look at Lambda as well. But for now, we are going to try to get the traffic, route it through API gateway to the backend service, and the backend service kind of give us our results back, depending on what we requested for. So without further ado, let's get our hands dirty and let's have an hands-on experience on what API gateway does. So here, I already logged onto my AWS console. So if you want to do that, if you are following up, So after logging in, if you come here and search for API Gateway, yeah, if you API Gateway and you click on this, so you should see this. So as you can see here, what it says here, API Gateway creates and manage APIs at scale. So Amazon API Gateway is a fully managed service that makes it easy for developers to create, publish, maintain, monitor, and secure APIs. So if you look at this diagram here, let's see if we can make it bigger. Can I make it bigger? I don't think so. So if you look at this diagram here, for example, it says connected users and streaming dashboard. And basically, these are the clients, which I said to be you and me, for example. So, and this is the API gateway. So API gateway also actually allows caching as well. It allows caching. So this is like your API gateway in the middle here, and the back end here is actually, it could be an AWS Lambda function, Lambda. It could be an EC2 instance. It could be an AWS Kinesis, DynamoDB, or any other AWS services. So it could be any of this, and also it could be your backend could be also outside of your AWS organization. So APIs type. So we have REST APIs, we have HTTP APIs, and we have the WebSocket. So let's try to create an API and see how it works. So there are different types of API here. We have HTTP API, we have the WebSocket API, REST API private. So the HTTP API says build low latency Lambda HTTP backend handler. Okay, so for our use case here, we are going to develop a REST API where you gain control over the request and response. Okay, for our use case here, I think we are going to be going with a REST API, which is the Lambda, HTTP, and AWS service. Yeah. So we're going to go for this one. So if I click on build, and here it says new API. So create a new API. Yes, I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to give it a name. My test API. That's just what I'm going to give it. So, and API endpoint type. So regional types are deployed in the current AWS region. So edge optimized APIs route requests to the nearest CloudFront point of presence, while private APIs are only accessible from your VPC. So this is actually what they are talking about here. So the regional, you could choose between regional, edge point, or private. So for our demo purpose, I'm going to go for regional. And for the security policy, I'm just going to leave this as default. I wouldn't touch anything here. I'm going to leave that. And I'm going to click on Create API. So successfully created REST APIs, my test API. So, and now if you look at, this is actually like the root directory. So we need to kind of create a depending on what we want to get from the API or what the API is actually meant for. We're going to create like a method here. So if I click on create method, and for our demo purpose, I'm going to click on get here. I'm going to click on get here because there is a JSON place folder somewhere that I demo somewhere that I could actually use to demo. So I'm going to see if I can look for that. So we can actually we could use that to test our API. So let me see. So if I come here, so as you can, so this is it. All HTTP methods are supported. You can use HTTP or HTTPS for requests. Okay, so this is actually a dummy REST API. You can call it that. If you could actually use your own, depending on what you're trying to configure. But for this demo purpose, I'm going to click on get on the AWS, and I'm going to be using this particular JSON placeholder. So basically, so just keep watching and see how it goes. So if I say on here, I already chose get, and here provide a Lambda function name or alias. You can provide an ARN from another account. Okay, so this is actually the location, US East 1. So I think I'm just going to leave this by default. Yes, I think I'm just going to leave this by default and see if, let me see. Okay, I think I need to copy this somehow. Yeah, I think I need to copy this here. I think I need to copy this here. Sorry, no. So after clicking get, sorry, we are not using a Lambda function, remember. Sorry, I made a mistake there. So I'll click on HTTP because we are trying to get an HTTP, trying to use an HTTP request. So I'm going to click on HTTP instead, not Lambda function. That was where the mistake is, sorry. So HTTP method, like I said earlier, we are clicking on get, and the endpoint, which is what I copied earlier, it is this, /post, note that. And I'm just gonna if I just leave the rest as default authorization, we are not actually using any authorization here, so it's just for test purpose. So I'm just going to leave that. API key required, no, we don't want that. So I'm just going to click on create method, and now the method has been created. So now we have this ARN here. If I should, for example, click on this ARN, if I copy this, copied, and I paste it on my web browser, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, sorry, because I've not deployed it. Okay, so before we get there, sorry. So this is actually what has happened here. We have the get method here, and this is what is happening here. The client, which is still me, for example, here, is actually we are actually going to we created a request method, which is which is the get. Then it's then integration request. Then it gets to the HTTP endpoint we pointed it as, which is a JSON placeholder. Then a JSON placeholder responds I mean, we get what we want and it comes back to the client. So this is actually how the architecture goes. So and I think that's it for now. So I wasn't able to access it on the other time because it has not been deployed yet. So if I click on deploy API, definitely I should be able to access it. So I think there should be like a test somewhere. Okay, otherwise let's see. Let's try to deploy it. So yeah, and here this is actually one thing I love about it. So it asks you to create it asks you which stage are you trying to deploy it for. So in the production environment, you kind of have like several stages. You have like the QA, the dev, the production, the development environment basically. So it's going to ask you for a stage. So we don't have a stage already here. So we're just going to say new stage and just give it a stage name. Let's say this is for dev. And after that, I'm just going to click on deploy. So, and once that's been deployed, that should be available publicly. And we should be able to see what's going on now. Let's see. Yeah. So let me see if I can. So if I check the ARN, okay, this is the invoke URL. So if I copy this HTTP, as you can see what it says, HTTP slash this is slash whatever slash this slash the slash our availability zone. So it's not exactly this particular placeholder. So if I click on that new page and paste it here, and as you can see what it says here, what is doing here. So we are kind of just pointing it. So you are kind of just pointing it to that particular placeholder, and it gives us this particular response. So if you notice the URL, as you can see, so it could be the method could be like like the get, could be like post, could be like delete, could be delete, whatever it is. So the API gateway just kind of route it there to the right backend that you want it to go to. So that's basically API gateway for you. That's basically API gateway for HTTP actually. And remember, we're actually routing traffic to we're routing traffic to somewhere outside of AWS, and which this also can be done to within the AWS environment as well. So yeah, this is just a test purpose for HTTP. So as you can see here, the three API types: the REST API, HTTP API, and WebSockets. And so that's it. And yeah, so that's it basically for AWS API Gateway. In the next video, we'll be looking at actually adding authentications, adding securities to it. So and which is adding cognito basically to it. So which is exactly what we'll be looking at in the next video. So that's authorization and authentication. That's adding cognito. And maybe going forward, we'll also look at Lambda functions, EC2 and ECS. Yes, we're going to look at how to route traffic there as well. So without further ado, thank you so much for staying with me. If you had stayed till this moment, and I want to say thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.